My name is Dave Thomas, and I'm a program manager at the International Association of Chiefs of Police and a national law enforcement trainer. Now, the video you are about to watch explains what crime victim compensation is and how officers can ensure victims in their communities receive proper access to it. All crime victims have rights, including the right to receive resources, services, and access to financial assistance. And crime victim compensation is a key resource for victims. Each state's program is administered differently and has individual requirements, such as acceptable types of claims and time limits on reporting to law enforcement. However, all state compensation programs provide financial support to qualifying crime victims. Law enforcement officers have an important role in telling victims about compensation assistance, as well as providing accurate documentation in police reports to support compensation eligibility.
The scariest thing is feeling that you're alone and no one knows what you're going through. June 17th, 2011, I was sexually assaulted by my best friend's father. I was 9, and when it happened, I was very scared and confused.
There'd been a sleepover at the mayor's house for their daughter's 10th birthday party. The husband had gone down during the night and molested 2 of the girls.
Sitting in this room watching the detective talking to my daughter, and it was about 45 minutes into the conversation when I suddenly realized that my daughter had been a victim too. It was nothing a parent could ever imagine hearing. You're not prepared for something like that.
Leadership setting a standard for victim-centered services is important. Our sole purpose is to be guardians of the community and to guard the victims of crime in particular. So it starts with having that as a mindset as a leader.
The moments after the crime happens sets the stage for a healing process and ultimately a journey towards justice, whatever that justice might mean to that particular person.
Victim services matter to the police department, to the whole criminal justice system.
As leaders, our job is not just to prevent and disrupt crime. It's not just to respond to crime. We have a role in helping victims become survivors.
In the case of Michael Gardner versus Virginia, it was very difficult for this small community, but we resiliently kept our heads down and kept plugging away with the investigation.
Sergeant Richardson was just incredibly compassionate and very, very professional, but at the same time, everything she did, she showed that she cared.
The victim advocates are part of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office in our agency. During the trial, victim witness was huge. They sat with those little girls with coloring in books. They gave them videos and also arranged for something called therapeutic dogs.
I saw brilliance in the victim witness services, and we used every aspect of their services and then some, and tried to explore best practices with them.
The victims in this case did fill out the forms for the Victim Compensation Fund through our victim witness advocates. I did complete forms for each of them, and it was forwarded to the Compensation Fund.
The people that helped me were just absolutely amazing.
When you connect victims with resources, you make that journey easier, whether it's victims' compensation, whether it's social services, counseling support.
Officers need to keep following through with the victim to ensure that victim services are being utilized.
In traumatic events, they don't recall all this information at that time. What they need at that point is someone to help them through this process. Crime victim compensation funds are there to help them with maybe relocation costs. For instance, do they need a moving truck? Do they need somewhere to stay overnight, emergency shelter, or do they need an apartment to live in for the meanwhile? Maybe they have the burden where they can't work. That's what the Victims Compensation Fund can assist with.
Probably the very best way to ensure that victims receive access to victims' compensation and the whole suite of services starts with values. It starts at the very top.
Each department is driven by their leaders.
If we make it a priority, if we make it a part of who we are, then our organization will value it.
Every state's compensation program is different. We each have different eligibility guidelines and different laws that we have to follow, but we all have the same general mission, and that is to compensate crime victims for losses sustained as a result of crime.
It's a huge step for victims to be able to have all of their needs met before they can even process an investigation, because what victims need are their basic needs met. They're thinking, I don't have time to think about this court hearing or following the investigation. Where am I going to get diapers for my baby? Where am I going to live? How am I going to pay my electricity bill?
We need to help them get back on their feet so they can be successful and eventually assist us in the investigation and hopefully prosecuting the person who victimized them.
By enhancing your ability to create an environment where people will report crime because they're going to be supported financially, you're going to end up removing those violent criminals off your streets.
When you build that trust, the victim compensation can assist with even solving crimes.
Every state in this union has a victim compensation fund. And so we as leaders need to contact the state and make sure that we have the resources available.
Each organization has to develop its policies based on statutory requirements. When it comes to notifying victims of victims' compensation funds, here at Southern Ute Police Department, we do have to provide victims' compensation information to the victims at the time that the crime is reported.
As chief of police, I take it as my role, and all of our roles, is to coordinate all entities that deal with our victims in our communities, to be victim-centered, to assist our victims through the criminal justice system.
I think it's very important that if you don't have a police-based victim services program, that you reach out and you build these bridges and collaboration for the victim.
Having access to services to support victims, having access to training to understand the importance of supporting victims of trauma is extremely important.
The victim compensation is a part of helping the healing process.
Call me and let me know if you need anything.
My baby daughter was just a beautiful spirit, was finishing up her first year in college. And my wife and I were home cooking dinner, and we received a call from my oldest daughter screaming that her sister had been shot.
She was killed in just a senseless act of violence.
My daughter was in surgery for about 4 or 5 hours that night, and we held on to all the hope that we could. The next morning, she turned for the worst, and around 8:30, 9 o'clock Tuesday morning, we lost our daughter. A young lady who had a beautiful and bright future was cut down in the prime of her life. The day that my daughter passed was the day that I was put in touch with victim advocates and Detective Bastian. I spoke with the victim advocate. She shared with me services that they could provide for the family. And one of the services that they did provide is a monetary contribution that would go toward the funeral service. They also offered any counseling services that we would need. My wife had just started her job, and immediately she was not working. They paid her salary for the time that she was off. So those were the more important services that they provided through victim advocacy, and they were a tremendous help to our family.
Anything that family needs, they know that they can call, reach out, and we'll get it taken care of.
It was a lot less taxing for me as someone who was going through a very traumatic situation.
One of the most important things for a police leader to keep in mind is that it is an extremely complicated process surviving trauma, and that helping people with their fundamental concerns eases that process. If your leadership understands the importance of that, then it will be valued at each layer that supports the entire department.
What we need to do from the moment that person comes in contact with us, we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make them feel like they mattered to us.
If you're caring, you're an active listener, and you show compassion to the victim, it's going to help your case, and it's going to get better services for the victim and the people we serve.
We as public safety professionals have a moral imperative to care about every victim, and we need to treat our neighbors with the dignity and respect that they deserve.